Good morning, y'all. Well, it's great to be back here in Jupiter. Mary Lou and I enjoyed it. Was it 2 years ago? Or last year? Okay, last year. We had an opportunity back when we first got married. We worked in the Chattanooga area, and then I was transferred to West Palm. And so we spent a good bit of time there in West Palm, and we come up to Jupiter back when y'all had the water that blow through the holes, through the rocks. I don't know if it does that anymore, but it did back in '85. I think I mentioned last time what was interesting, there was a lady here who was living here in 1985. Do you remember the lady that the news would cover, and they'd go and she would feed a moray by hand? Yeah. That was amazing. This morning, I'd like to talk about the unemployment line, or what is our mission and who's responsible. Who's worked in corporate America? In corporate America, are we required to know what our mission is? Absolutely. Who works in healthcare? Who knows what JACO is? And one of the things that JACO does is they can go around and they can talk to your staff and they can say, can you tell me what y'all's mission is? And you better know. And so on the back of the employee name tags, I put our mission statement. And so I taught my staff, when a JACO member would come and say, whether you're a housekeeper or nursing staff or dietary or laboratory or pharmacy or whatever, can you tell me what your mission statement is? And they pull it out and they say, oh, I'd be glad to. Let me read it to you. I'm so excited about it. Well, they definitely got the mission statement right. Mission statement is huge. I remember when I was at UT, and one of my professors in finance had worked for Coca-Cola. And every year, Coca-Cola, their board of directors, gets together and they determine, is our mission statement accurate? Now, tomorrow is the first time in 21 years that I've missed a major board meeting in which that happens at a healthcare institution in Illinois or Indiana. And the schedule just went kind of strange, and I'm here. So that's going to happen tomorrow. And we look at the mission statement to determine, what do we do? Well, Coca-Cola would do that. They'd say, okay, what is our 25-year goal, our 10, our 5, 3, 2, 1-year goal? And whatever happens in Coca-Cola is based on that mission statement. Mission statement is huge. And so this morning I'd like to look at what is our mission statement and who is responsible. Now, who is our example as we share the gospel? Jesus is, yes. I remember one time I got my Bible out, and I started in Matthew, and I took a highlighter, and once he started healing folks, I started highlighting Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And you didn't turn a page. Once he started in that book, in those specific books, he healed. It was like every page he was healing people. Now, there are 29 specific individual healings. But there's many, many healings that he healed the multitudes. And he would heal till late in the evening. He would heal till everyone was healed. And why did he do that? Why did he spend so much time healing? We're actually told he spent more time healing than he did presenting the gospel. Why is that? Because it works? Yeah, because it works. Now, which is more important, healing or the gospel? Oh, the gospel, absolutely. But it's like chemistry. It's just how it works. God made it that way, where healing leads a person to Christ. If I wanted to go out this door and I had my arms handcuffed behind my back, and I go up to the door, and it didn't have a push, but it had a knob, how would I go if my arms are handcuffed? Can I open the door? Well, I might be able to kick it open or go through like a bull in a china closet. But that's not how to effectively do it. And many times we do share the gospel like a bull in a china closet. Is it true? Yeah. When we go to a house fire, I tell my guys, they have so much testosterone, these young guys. And they just want to kick the door in. They want to take their Halligan and they want a tool and they want to bust the door open. And I say, guys, just check the doorknob. Or I may come off the mountain, or we have a fire station up on the mountain. We have a fire station down on I-40. We actually, as I mentioned last night, we had an event yesterday. As I was flying from Knoxville to Charlotte, we had a wreck on I-40. And a pickup truck had jumped the 9-inch. All there is right now going for like 12 miles is a 9-inch barrier. It's actually a curb between east and westbound traffic on the interstate, where the Helena tore the interstate out. Actually, I was right there. It tore it right in front of me. And so we have a wreck on the interstate, and the guys want to take jaws of life to rip the car open. But guys, try the door handle. It's a lot faster. And as we look at sharing the gospel with people, this morning someone said the health message is the right hand. Well, it is. Opens the door and it allows the gospel to go through. It's interesting. I worked at, she mentioned, a international lifestyle center, and the staff that were most effective in reaching people were their therapist. The person that did the massage, the person that did the hydrotherapy, the person that went out and walked with people. That is the person that the other person trusted, because they put their hands on them. We've gone nuts today. Oh, you can't touch people. Y'all are a hugging church, yes? Is it okay to hug? Is it okay to appropriately touch people? It is. To put your hand on someone's shoulder, it's therapeutic. So let's take a look. Our mission, we should ever remember that the object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who taketh away the sin of the world. It's interesting. I had a girl come in a couple years ago, and she looked like a whooped dog. I mean, she didn't look good. She was in her mid-20s. She had two children. They were twins, 10 months old. She was a drug addict and had just stopped her drugs cold turkey. And she was having significant withdrawals. She went to the ER and to try to get help of her withdrawals, and they said, we don't work with things like that. And she's needing help. What do I do? They said, well, go see Walt. See if he can help you over at the mustard seed. So she came over, and she did. She looked like a whooped dog. She just looked really bad. And we were sitting there, and I was talking to her, and we were talking a little bit of how we could help with the situation in which she was. And I said, where do you go to church? She says, I can't go to church. Why can't you go to church? She says, I'm not perfect. What a lie. What a lie that Satan had told this little girl. I said, you can go to church. I introduced her to this guy called David. Did David mess up? I asked her, said, you ain't killed nobody, have you? She says, no. And I told her about David. And I said, are you sure you ain't killed nobody? She said, no. I told her about Paul. Are we sin-sick souls? All of us are. And so it's not that we're preaching to other people. We're helping each other to get to know Christ better. Is that true? Is that what this place does? Is this not a hospital of sinners? I told that girl it was. It was safe for her to go. We should ever remember that the object of the medical missionary work is to point sin-sick men and women to the man of Calvary who taketh away the sin of the world. Now, I say medical missionaries, and you say, well, I'm not a medical missionary. Oh, wait. We've just begun. And this morning we read, and Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, all power is given to me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach what? all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe some things, all things, whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even into the end of the world. And one of the things that Jesus taught us was medical missionary work. To help people who are sick, even on Sabbath. True? Look at how many healings were on Sabbath. Second Corinthians 5:20. Now then, we are what? Ambassadors for Christ, as though God did beseech you by us. We prayed you in Christ's stead, be ye reconciled to God. We're ambassadors. Ambassadors are highfalutin people. I go to Africa and I teach. We just finished our 15th program in Rwanda, where we do a 2-week program in lifestyle health. And I have ambassadors that come through the program. These are highfalutin people. Y'all are highfalutin people. Y'all know what highfalutin is? Important. It was funny. 2 weeks ago, Barbara and I were in Kentucky. Well, in Kentucky, I could just talk mountain talk. I didn't have to worry about what I had to say, and because they understood me. And I'd say some words, and Barbara's looking over there. She sat over there, and I say, Barbara, do y'all not say that in Australia? Well, it got to where then I was sitting on this side, and she would get up, and we were back and forth speaking, like y'all had up earlier. And then she'd say some word in Australian, one of their words, and she said, Walt, do y'all say that here? No. But y'all are still in the South, so y'all should understand me. Who's responsible? I mean, that's important. Who is responsible? The medical missionary work should be a part of the work of every church in our land. Now, Mary Lou and I, we went to Virginia, the first time we went to Virginia, and I worked in healthcare, and my job was to go to places that were dogs, places that were not either financially running well or places that had poor patient care, or both. And my job was to go in and fix the problem. And then once the problem was fixed, then they found another place for me to go. So we moved a lot. So we were at a place outside of Covington, Virginia, and there was a little church in Covington that had 4 little ladies. And the youngest one was in her upper 70s. We didn't go to that church because at that time we had 2 children. So we went to Buena Vista because they had a Sabbath school, and we wanted to take them to Sabbath school. That little church didn't have a Sabbath school for children. But could have those old little ladies said, we're old little ladies, we can't do nothing, we're old, therefore we don't have to have the medical missionary work part of our church? What's it say? The medical missionary work should be a part of the work of what? Every church in the land. Those old ladies got out of their house and went to church. They could get up and get out. Therefore, they should be medical missionaries. Their church should have a medical missionary program. Does your church have a medical missionary program? Absolutely. That's why I'm here today. Y'all are having a health outreach this weekend. God wants ministers and the church members to take a decided, active interest in the medical missionary work. God wants the ministers and the church members to take a what? Decided, and then what? Active. So if you qualify as a church member, which several of y'all did a few minutes ago, y'all were circling those names. If you circled those names, that means you're a church member. That means you are to have a decided, active interest in medical missionary work. The medical missionary work is not to be divorced from the church. All our new converts need training. And we'll see why in a moment, why that's important. I've been places where they say, well, medical missionary, medical only can be for a medical doctor. Well, did you know there's 70-some job descriptions that use the word medical in the job description? like emergency medical technician. They're not a doctor. Or a medical social worker, or a medical transcriptionist, and it goes on and on and on, that the word medical is within a job description. So you can't just say medical only means medical doctor. The minister will often be called upon to act the part of a physician. He should have a training that will enable him to administer the simpler remedies for the relief of suffering. Ministers and Bible workers. Who's to be a Bible worker? All of us? All members to be Bible workers? To share the gospel? So that's all of us. Ministers and all of us, Bible workers, should prepare themselves for this line of work, for in doing it, they are following the example of Christ. And that's what we talked about at first. Christ healed. It was like every page, he's healing. Every page. I'm highlighting Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Christ is healing people. He's touching those. And healing, a lot of times we think is healing as just, there's an issue of, what is the last healing that Christ did on an individual? The ear, yeah. Peter chopped off that guy's ear. And Jesus picked it up and stuck it back on and he healed it. But it's not just the physical healing, such as the leper or the person with palsy or the woman with an issue of blood. It's also healing of people of demons. Is that healing spiritually? Is spiritual healing important? Absolutely. The ministers and Bible workers, us, should prepare themselves for this line of work. For in doing it, they are following the example of Christ. You'll find I repeat because I'm a person who, that's just the way I think. I got to stick it in there a few times. They should be as well prepared by education and practice. That is huge. This afternoon, we're going to be doing the practice. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing the practice. And I was so glad that your leaders are wanting to do that. So often, there is only academia. It's just in our head. But they can't take it from here and put it here. There's a huge difference. Yes, we can know theory, but who took chemistry? Can you imagine taking chemistry and not going to lab and working the Bunsen burners? Who took anatomy? Can you imagine taking anatomy and not going and doing the dissecting, or not, identifying the muscles, not identifying the nerves, not identifying the bones? You've got to go from academia, then go to practical. They should be as well prepared by education, academia, and practice to combat disease of the body as they are to heal the sin-sick soul by pointing to the great physician. They are fulfilling the commission which Christ gave to the 12 disciples, or the 12, and afterward to the 70. And whatsoever ye enter, heal the sick that are therein, and say unto them, the kingdom of God is come nigh unto you. Christ stands by their side, as ready to heal the sick as when he was on this earth in person. Isn't that cool? To me, that is so cool, because when you have a situation and you're working to help a person with whatever that concern is, do we know everything? Do we know everything? There's so many things. I mean, the body, you can have one of the biggest issues that I deal with right now is people coming in with sleep issues. Post-COVID, sleep is huge. Anxiety is huge. Cancer is huge. But sleep is huge, and everybody's different. What may put you to sleep may not work for you. Some people have a problem falling asleep. Some people have a problem staying asleep. And then when someone tries something, it may be like deodorant. They've got to change it every couple months. It doesn't keep working. Everybody has different physiology. Everyone has a different situation psychologically. And psychological is huge on how it affects the body run. Is that true? We're told that before you treat the body, you must treat the brain, because it's what runs the body. And before you treat the brain, you have to address the blood. Why? It's the blood that is fuel to the brain. And how do you fix the blood? It's by what we eat and what we drink. It's huge. So everyone's different. And so who is standing there by us when we're not sure on this person's actual physiology, or we just don't know what to do? There's times that situations occur and we don't know what the problem is. You know, I had someone come in the other day and they go, they don't know what's wrong with me. They can't figure it out. Where was I? I was in Minnesota. And there's this family I've known for years, 10 years. And I go in and their daughter, 18 years of age, who's usually wide open, a lot of energy. They're farming family, just great folks. She works at UG Pine. She's at home. Well, one, why is she at home? Then her mother is walking her like an upper 80-year-old woman. That is her ambulation status. Literally, she's walking like an upper 80-year-old woman, and her cognitive function is about the same. 18 years old. What's wrong? I asked the mother. The mother's a nurse. And I say, what's wrong? She says, we don't know. We've taken her over to the university in North Dakota. We even took her down to Mayo Clinic. They're in Minnesota. Took her down to Rochester. They had no idea. Mayo just said, we don't know. She'll be an invalid the rest of her life. That's not a good thing. And who is standing by our side to help us? Jesus. Now that, people say, well, I don't have a degree in health. I'm not trained in that. Well, who's willing to be there right with you and help in the healing process? Christ is. Those who are sick in body are nearly always sick in soul. Wow, let's come back to that. Those who are sick in body are nearly always sick in soul. And when the soul is sick, the body is made sick. Is that an opportunity to share the gospel? Is there the gospel needed to be shared in that situation? Absolutely. The indifference among our ministers in regard to health reform and the medical missionary work is surprising. Even those who do not profess to be Christians treat the subject with greater respect than do some of our own people, and these are going in advance of us. I took nutrition courses from Cornell, and I can tell you, when T. Colin Campbell was at Cornell University, he could be ahead of us. Who's ever watched Forks Over Knives? Amazing. Who's watched Forks Over Knives? Who knows who T. Colin Campbell is? You want me to tell you a backstory? We're in class. Campbell was raised in Southwest Virginia on a dairy farm, beef cattle. I was in Tennessee, raised on a beef cattle and dairy farm. And Campbell had a hypothesis that we need more meat, we need more dairy. So he goes into a study to figure out and prove that, called the China study. It's a 20-some-year study with Cambridge. Well, as Cornell and Cambridge, Campbell leading the charge, as he looks at the stats, the numbers, it was just the opposite. You actually die quicker if you eat meat and eat dairy. So what's he do? He has the backing of Cornell. He has the backing of the beef industry. He has the backing of the meat industry, of the dairy industry. What does he do? His hypothesis is being blown away. His reputation. Who's took stats? Statistics. Can you change numbers? Yeah, you can change the numbers. That's probably the only thing I learned at UT about statistics that I remember is, yeah, you can mess with the numbers. So Campbell's going, and he tells us this. He admits this. Do I play with the numbers? And he said he could hear his father saying, parents, grandparents, listen to this. He could hear his father saying, Colin, never lie when he was a little boy. Colin, when he's a little child like this, Colin never lie. Colin never lie. And what did he do? He told the truth. And thus we have something called plant-based. And that's coined by T. Colin Campbell, a plant-based diet. Are people going in advance of us? Unfortunately. But can we do something about it? Actually, right now, several weeks ago, I mentioned last month, I had an opportunity to be in Phoenix. One of your members here was there, Dr. Ben Carson. He was speaking. A guy by the name of Dale Bigtree. Who has heard of Dale Bigtree? He was there. And it was interesting as Bigtree and I were speaking, we were presenting together, and how would I describe it? The energy. I mean, he's like a hunting dog hunting a coon. Or maybe a bear dog hunting a bear. I mean, he's after it. He told me, he says, I want to get rid of the ingredients in our food that's causing disease. I mean, he is after it like a coon dog. They're going in advance of us. A gospel minister will be twice as successful in his work if he understands how to treat disease. Continually, increasing light has been given to me on this subject. A minister of the gospel who is also a medical missionary. It's not a question if, it is a statement. Who can cure physical ailments is much more effective worker than one who cannot do this. His work as a minister of the gospel is much more complete. Should a minister? Let's look. Who took basic language? Anybody take basic language? If then statements. If then this then. Yeah. So the Bible's very if then. If this then this. So if a church is to have a medical missionary training program, and if the members are to be medical missionaries, should the pastor also understand medical missionary work? Yeah. So let me give you an example. 2 years ago, Mary Lou and I went over to Sweden. I was presenting for 2 weeks, and I had one afternoon, just a small little period, that I could step out and go visit a fire department. Now, let me tell you what. In Sweden, they are so much in advance of the American Fire Service. They really are. They've got some really cool stuff. So I go to this fire department. It's huge. And so a captain takes me around the fire department, shows me their trucks, shows me the cool things that they use for fighting fire and rescue and whatever that we don't have here, and talks about it. And then we go to the huge dining room that's at least as big as this room here. And there's chairs, and there's a lady sitting on a stool and at a table reading the paper. I walk over, and he introduces me to her. She's the chief. I can learn. Every time I have an opportunity to stop by a fire department, I stop by a fire department because I want to learn. I believe that we have to know more today than yesterday, and we have to know more tomorrow than we did today. So here's an opportunity. I can learn from this lady who's the chief. So I start talking to her about fire. She didn't have the slightest idea. See, she had just been transferred from the law enforcement division over to fire, and her specialty that she'd been in was abuse. Now, she proceeded to want to tell me about abuse, female abuse. There can be physical abuse, there can be verbal abuse, and there can be financial abuse. So if you decide that he doesn't have enough money coming home, you can have him charged for financial abuse. Crazy. She had no knowledge of the fire that she could give me. What good is she as a fire chief and there's a major structure fire if she doesn't know what's safe to send the guys in? I mean, when we go to a house fire, it is my job as the chief to know, can guys go in? If I send guys into that house fire and the house fire collapses, it's my fault. I have to know fire science. I have to know fire behavior. I have to know what's reasonable and obtainable versus what is not. How can I train guys if I don't have the knowledge myself? Is the same true here? It is because of the directions I have received from the Lord that I have the courage to stand among you and speak as I do, notwithstanding the way in which you may look at the medical missionary work. I wish to say that the medical missionary work is whose work? God's work, period. That's right now, that's understood. The Lord wants every one of His ministers to come in line. Let me read that one again. Can you imagine if your boss said, you need to come in line? That's serious. The Lord wants every one of His ministers to come into line, take hold of the medical missionary work, and it will give you access to the people. So, in order to spread the gospel, what is most to give us access? Last month, actually, I was heading to Phoenix. So I'm sitting there, or I'm in the office, I'm at work, and this fella comes in, and I can tell he's challenged. And so I sit down with him. He's a Navy SEAL. He's a retired Navy SEAL. And he sits down, and he's having a health condition and wanting some help. And I was talking to him about the issue, and I said, but there's going to be a day that we get a new body. When we get to heaven, we can have a new body and we don't have to deal with that problem. He says, I can't go to heaven. Why? He said, my preacher told me I cannot go to heaven. He said, even my own mother told me I cannot go to heaven. See, he had been a Navy SEAL for many years. And what he had done as a Navy SEAL, they said he had committed things that God would not forgive. And what some of our Navy SEALs have to do. So again, I go back to David. Is David a good example of where a person had murdered somebody? And premeditated murder. And God said he was a man after his own heart when he confessed. And so I shared the story with him that he can go to heaven. That as long as we come back and it was not something of himself he had done. It was something he did as he was a Navy SEAL. He was ordered to do it. The next day, I'm in Phoenix. I get a text. He says, I'm going into surgery. They have to put a pacemaker in. So I called him a number of hours later that afternoon, and I said, how are you doing? He said, I'm doing great. He says, you know what I told the people? I wasn't worried at all. He says, I'm going to heaven. Amazing. How through a health issue, you have an opportunity to share the gospel with a person. Isn't God good? It's the entering wedge. Their hearts will be touched as you minister to their necessities. As you relieve their suffering, you will find opportunity to speak to them of the love of Jesus. There's so many stories. I don't have time to share with them today of how people who are atheists, people who thought they had no hope, when you share the love of Christ, they see hope. And there's their hope. As a person has healing, and you give the credit, if they do have healing, that it is God that will do the healing, and then they have healing, it's not you. It's not the item that you gave them or the modality or treatment that you used. It is only God that does the healing. Then it's only God that gets the credit, and it can give them hope. You will never be ministers after the gospel till you show a decided interest in medical missionary work. The gospel of healing and blessing and strengthening. And people will say, well, I was only trained in this, and so I'm only a gospel person, and so I'll have to get a health person here. When I respond to a scene in a fire truck, I respond as a firefighter. But as we get to, say, a wreck on the interstate, and the car is all tore up, and I have to use jaws of life, then I take off my fire helmet, and I don't take my helmet off, but get the idea. I take off the fire helmet, and I put on the rescue helmet. I don't say, well, guys, let's wait for rescue squad to get here. It'll take them a little while. They're about 30 minutes away. No, we're trained in rescue. We have jaws of life. We can rip that vehicle open. Let's do it. And so we get out of the truck. We change our mode from putting out fires to rescuing. We pull out jaws of life. We rip the car open. And then the person's bleeding significantly. Do I then say, well, guys, we got to wait on the ambulance truck, the Band-Aid truck? It's coming in from town. Like I mentioned yesterday morning, I had a call at 1:30 in the morning of a lady who fell and broke her hip. It takes 45 minutes for the ambulance to get from town up to where we are up on the mountain. I'm a whole lot closer. And so I can get there and provide stabilization. So I put on the EMS hat, and we take care of the medical problem before the ambulance even gets there. And then let's say it's a hazardous material situation. Then I put on the hazmat hat, and I deal with the hazmat situation. A pastor has the gospel hat on. But when he sees a health issue, he puts on the medical missionary hat. As a church member who says, well, I'm not trained in medical. A person came in one day, and they said, we were talking, and right out of the blue, they said, why do you go to church on Saturday? Well, I don't wear that hat. I do medical part, and that's my pastor does that part. And so let me see here. Let's see here. We can call no, he's on vacation. He takes a month at a time. No, he'll be back next month. What's your telephone number? I'll have him call you. No, the opportunity is right then that the Holy Spirit impressed that person to ask that spiritual question. I need to answer it now. Would you agree? It goes both ways. See, I wear a gospel hat. I wear a medical missionary hat. And depending on what's going on, I'm taking it on, I'm taking it off, back and forth, maybe multiple times in the same situation. We timed out. We have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of the medical missionary work. The world is a laser house filled with victims of both physical and spiritual disease. Everywhere, people are perishing for a lack of knowledge of the truths that have been committed to us. The members of the church are in need of awakening. Do you agree with that? That they may realize their what? To impart these truths. When corporate says, this is your responsibility, had you better do it? You better do it, or you go look for somewhere else. It's real simple. When I go into healthcare institutions and the dogs, whether it's financial problems, patient care problems, or both, there is either two issues. There is either they didn't have systems or they weren't following the systems. It's that simple. And so you make sure they have the systems. Then you ask them, do you want to follow these? If you want to, we'd love to have you on the team. If you're not interested, patients' lives are at stake, I need to get someone else. It's that simple. It's that simple. God says the members of the church are in need of an awakening that they may realize their responsibility to impart these truths. And what are these truths? The gospel through the medical missionary work. We have come to a time when every member of the church should take hold of the medical missionary work. The members of the church are in need of awakening that they may realize their responsibility to impart these truths. Those who have been enlightened by the truth are to be light bearers to the world. To hide our light at this time is to make a terrible mistake. The message to God's people today is arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. It's so easy to say, I'm awful busy. I'm already slap under, can't even get what I got to get done now. But God has given us a commission. What is more important? Every person should have a knowledge of nature's remedial agencies. Every person. And we're going to learn those this afternoon and tomorrow. Some of those. There's a lot to learn. But we're going to learn a good bit this afternoon. And we get to do hands-on. And tomorrow. It is essential both to understand the principles involved in the treatment of the sick and to have a practical training that will enable one rightly to use this knowledge. Training is huge. In the fire service, it is not practice until you get it right. Anybody work in the fire service? Practice till you can't get it wrong. Yes? Why? People's lives depend on you. Yes? It is. I mean, it's not time to whip out the manual and say, how do you use this jaws of life? No, he better know. And I guarantee you he knows because he's a fireman. And you train until you can't get it wrong. Christ commits to his followers an individual work, a work that cannot be done by proxy. Ministry to the sick and the poor, giving the gospel to the lost, is not to be left to committees like your folks wearing these shirts today. Not to be left to them. Or to organize charities. Individual responsibility, individual effort, personal sacrifice is the requirement of the gospel. It's interesting. When I look back, Mary Lou and I got on a plane a couple years ago, and I don't know where we were, Charlotte, Atlanta, somewhere, and we were flying out probably to Washington State. And this lady sitting, but Mary Lou's by the window, I'm in the middle, this lady's sitting here, and she says, what do you do? So I started sharing with her just general philosophy of lifestyle health. And she said, do you know Barbara O'Neill? I said, I do. I've known her for a number of years. Why? She says, that philosophy is what Barbara O'Neill teaches. I said, that is true. Well, I found out 4 weeks ago, as I got to spend more time with Barbara, why she and I have that same philosophy. I was working in regular health care, and a fella he asked me to preach a sermon. I'd never preached before. I don't know what to do, but if God's leading you to do something, like you're getting ready to ask people to do something, if God's leading them to do, then they need to, if God's asking them, yes? So I said, okay, what do I preach about? He said, well, here's a little book. I want you to read this book, and then I want you to preach on what's in that book. Well, you got to read the book in order to preach on that book. Well, actually, that book is the same book that changed Barbara O'Neill working from regular health care to lifestyle, and it changed mine from regular health care to lifestyle, and it's that book right there, The Ministry of Healing. It changed my career. As I'm looking and I'm seeing what I'm doing at work, and wait a minute, what did it say in that book? I'm not doing that. Okay. What am I doing? I went home one day and I told Mary Lou, I don't care if I dig ditches. What I'm doing is legal, but it's not ethical. Because I knew the games that I played as an administrator. There's a lot of games. And my dad told me, he said, son, I don't care what you do. You can dig ditches if you want to. But it's got to be legal. It's got to be ethical. You got to raise enough money. You have to make enough money to put food on your family's table and put a roof over their head. But it's got to be legal and ethical. Individual responsibility, individual effort, personal sacrifice is the requirement of the gospel. In choosing men and women for His service, God does not ask whether they possess worldly wealth, learning, or eloquence. He asks, this is good. This is good because, having worldly wealth or highfalutin eloquence or learning, I'm not a smart fellow. I grew up on a dairy farm. Do they walk in such humility that I can teach them my way? Can I put my words into their lips? Will they represent me? I would much rather hire a person in a position, nurse, whatever, therapist, whatever, and teach them to bring them from another healthcare institution that all they could tell me about, well, we did it like this over there. We did it like that over there. No, I want this quality. I expect high quality patient care. And so God does not care about what I have to say. Are you willing to put His words onto your lips? That is the words that count. Because I'll tell you what, if you think you're doing it, you're going to fall and you're going to bust your nose. God will use men, and people say, nobody uses me. I ain't going to be used. God will use men who are willing to be used. If you are not, I'm sorry, I got to come back out of the mountains. If y'all are willing to be used, God will use you. If you are not willing to be used, God cannot use you. It is not the most brilliant, the most talented person whose work produces the greatest and most lasting results. Men and women are needed who have heard a message from heaven. The most effective workers are those who respond to the invitation, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. Our church schools are ordained by God to prepare the children for this great work. Here, children are to be instructed in the special truths for this time in the practical missionary work. Practical. They are to enlist in the army of workers to help the sick and the suffering. Children can take part in the medical missionary work. And people say, I've been in health ministry meetings that say, you don't have an MD beside your name. You're only an RN. Or you're only a registered dietitian. That's wrong. It says every member is to be a medical missionary. And here it says even children. Mary Lou and I are doing a class down in Chattanooga, and it was at the McDonald Rhodes Church. We had around 100 children from kindergarten to 12th grade, and we're teaching a week-long program on medical missionary work, what we're going to be learning this afternoon and what we're going to be learning tomorrow. We're teaching these children that were K through 12. Wednesday morning, a lady comes in. She said, I need to tell you what happened last night. I'm going, oh boy, what happened? What did her child do that I messed up on? She says, I came and picked her up yesterday, and I had a terrible migraine. Took her home. My little girl, when I got into the house, she took me by the hand, took me to the kitchen, had me sit down in a chair. Her little girl's a kindergartner. Takes me to a chair, has me sit down in the chair. She goes and gets a basin, pours it full of warm water. She comes and she has prayer. She carefully picks my feet up, takes my shoes off, picks my feet up, puts them in her hand, and sets my feet down in that warm water. She then goes and gets a basin and gets ice water. It's 2 washcloths and puts one to my forehead, one to the back of my neck. And she keeps changing those and making sure this is hot. She said, my migraine went away. Can children do it? Yes, they can do it. They are to enlist in the army of workers to help the sick and suffering. Children can take part in the medical missionary work, and by their jots and tittles can help carry it forward. So I hope to see children this afternoon and tomorrow. There is a message regarding health reform to be done in every church. There is a work to be done in every school. Neither principal nor teacher should be entrusted with the education of the youth until they have a practical knowledge of the subject. Again, firefighter, can you have a chief that's never gone up through the ranks? Are you serious? Well, yeah, they did it with that lady over there. As a firefighter, do you respect them? No. Are you in danger? Absolutely. Neither principal nor teacher should be entrusted with the education of the youth until they have a practical knowledge of this subject. Some have felt at liberty to criticize the question and find fault with health reform principles of which they knew little by experience. They should stand shoulder to shoulder, heart to heart with those who are working in right lines. Medical missionary work is the pioneer work of the gospel. Why is it so important? The door through which the truth for this time is to find entrance to many homes. God's people are to be genuine medical missionaries. So if it says genuine, could there be ungenuine? Who's ever heard of true education? Therefore, could there be false education? We're told there is genuine medical missionary, so we need to find out what genuine medical missionary is, because we don't want false medical missionary. For they are to learn to minister to the needs of both soul and body. So as we work in healthcare, it is not just to fix the broken bones. It is not just to fix the diabetes. It is not just to fix the hypertension. We're to reach and help to fix the soul also. Yes. The purest unselfishness is to be shown by our workers as, with the knowledge and experience gained by practical work, they go out to give treatment to the sick. As they go from house to house, they will find access to many hearts. If you don't hear anything I have to say today, I want you to listen to this one sentence. This one sentence. Many will be reached who otherwise never would have heard the gospel. How many people? Are we that person, as we saw in that first picture, as the Levi or the person that walks by that person on the side of the road, and we walk by them and we never help them? Did God put that person in our path that we could help? Is that a person who we could have shared the gospel with and now doesn't hear the gospel? That's serious stuff. Do medical missionary work, thus you will gain access to the hearts of the people. The way will be prepared for more decided proclamation of the truth. You will find that relieving their physical suffering gives an opportunity to minister to their spiritual needs. And all we're doing this morning is studying the life of Christ. That's exactly what he did. That's all we're doing. If you're a Christian and doesn't matter what church you go to, you study the life of Christ. And that's what we're doing this morning. The Lord will give you success in this work. That's a good thing. I mean, if you were going to go and do something and you knew that you would be successful, why would you say no? If God said, I will give you success, there's no reason not to. The Lord will give you success in this work, for the gospel is the power of God unto salvation. When it is interwoven with the practical life, when it is lived and practiced. I can see in the Lord's providence that the medical missionary work is to be a great entering wedge whereby diseased souls may be reached. Without health, no one can be as distinctly understand or as completely fulfill his obligation to himself. That's the person that doesn't have health. To his fellow beings or his Creator. Therefore, the health should be as faithfully guarded as the character. Is character important? What one thing do we take to heaven? Our character. Let's read that sentence again. Therefore, health should be as faithfully guarded as the character. A knowledge of physiology and hygiene should be the basis of all educational efforts. Medical missionary work brings to humanity the gospel of release from suffering. It is the pioneer work of the gospel. It is the gospel practiced, the compassion of Christ revealed. Of this work there is great need, and the world is open for it. And I believe that. We're in the time I call of okra. Who likes okra? If you go Friday morning and okra's that long, can you pick it? Still short. But you come back Sunday night, Monday morning, you go out to the garden, and the okra's that long. Is it? It's too long. It's too coarse. Perfect okra is about right there. I love okra. I like to just go pick it off the bush, the plant, shall I say. We're in the time of okra, and people are willing to listen right now. We have an opportunity. I believe we will lose that opportunity. Do you? Yes, we will. Then, the work of the ministry after being after the Lord's order, the sick will be healed, and poor, suffering humanity will be blessed. There's so much to share with you this morning. Let me finish with this. The health reform I was shown is part of the third angel's message and is just as closely connected with it as are the arm and hand with the human body. I saw that we as a people must make an advanced move in this great work. Ministers and people must act in concert. God's people are not prepared for the loud cry of the third angel. Why? Because they have not embraced in the health message. God's people are not prepared for the loud cry of the third angel's message. Why? We have not grabbed hold of health reform and the health message. They have a work to do for themselves which they should not leave for God to do for them. He has left this work for them to do, for us to do. It is an individual work. One cannot do it for another. I'll finish with this. I wish to tell you that soon there'll be no work done in ministerial lines but medical missionary work. If you are not a medical missionary, according to this, you will not have the ability to spread the gospel. We know the last two works are medical missionary work and literature evangelism. But there will be a time that we cannot even share the gospel through books. The only way that you can share the gospel is where a person who is sick, you can go help them. But you have to have the knowledge of using that component of what to do for that person that has high blood pressure, what to do for that person that has diabetes, what to do for that person that, whatever the problem is. You must understand those modalities in order to be able to help that person. For if you do not, you will be on God's unemployment line.